securities. The newly agreed trade deal between the US, Canada and Mexico, the USMCA, has helped drive markets higher for much of the week. Now, despite the breakthrough, Washington remains frozen out of the upcoming meetings on international trade hosted by Canada. Ottawa is claiming only like-minded nations have been invited. The USMCA has also sparked controversy over how it's going to restrict Canada's ability to make trade deals with non-market economies. That's what it says in it. In other words, those like China. Joining me is the former Prime Minister. Prime Minister, good to see you. Kim Campbell is with me. Former Prime Minister of Canada, but also one of the parties who was there during NAFTA itself.
Indeed, my signature is on the environmental and labor side agreement. And in fact, the Canada-U.S. free trade agreement was the issue that brought me into national politics. And the '88 election in Canada was really a referendum on that deal. So trade's a really important part of my history.
And when you now look at this new agreement, with all its deficiencies, do you feel Canada was somehow bludgeoned into it?
Well, I think the timing of the negotiation was something that we hadn't necessarily expected, except when President Trump was elected, since getting rid of NAFTA was one of his campaign promises. We expected something would happen. But I think other than that, I think that we've had time to do what we needed to do in the negotiations. I don't think we thought we were bludgeoned. I think we hoped that we'd have a happier and more enthusiastically supportive American administration.
From what you've seen in the agreement, Canada benefits?
I think so. I think so.
And if you look at this strange clause at the back end of the agreement about no party being allowed to do a deal with non-market economies, and if they do, then that can be terminated in bilaterals. What do you make of that? What's behind it?
Well, you know, first of all, I don't think that Canada is. I mean, we've talked about trade agreements with China, but I think even given this latest scandal with the chips and all that kind of stuff, I think creating binding trade agreements with non-market economies who do not have the kind of legal structure behind them that goes with market economies that we work with, I think is a bit worrisome. So I don't think in the short run that's a problem for Canada at all.
But what's behind it? Why bother putting it in?
Well, I think this is part of the American desire to put pressure on China and say, look, we aren't alone. You know, we've got, you know, because don't forget how big the North American trading market is. We've got this big, huge market, and we are going to put pressure on you to play by the rules.
How much bitterness is there in Canada over the way the Prime Minister was treated by Donald Trump? Now, they can paper it over and say it's all politics and so. But the reality is, first of all, to claim national security as a reason for tariffs, and then to call him dishonest and weak.
I think people consider the source. You know, because, you know, the president says terrible things about somebody. Now, he's in love with Kim Jong-un now, who was actually terrible, Mr. Rocket Man. So I think we don't take it all that seriously. I think the national security thing was offensive. But remember, national security is the get-out-of-jail-free card in most trade pacts. It's the one grounds on which you can put tariffs on your otherwise non-tariffable partner.
You were the first woman prime minister, first female prime minister of Canada, and the only one. So far.
I'm waiting.
And you take the lead on gender-related issues. What do you make of the way Dr. Fox has been treated on the Kavanaugh hearings? Now it looks like it's coming to a vote.
Oh, I think the issues are so much more complicated than even gender, although I think sexual assault and all of those issues are real hot buttons. I mean, I could criticize that process much more broadly in terms of the failure to provide documents and things.
But if you take...
It's a small piece of it, but sure, it's part of an ongoing history, an ongoing story.
Yeah, but you say that, but the reality is that these issues only become live when they rise up the agenda, and this one has, because of Dr. Blasey and the way in which she... And then President Trump's comments in his speech the other day, and now seemingly a rejection of it all with the acceptance of the FBI and a vote. Where does it leave women?
Well, I think it leaves some women much more motivated to press for better recognition of their rights, to press for a more honest assessment of what it means to be seen as a body who is the perk of power, is really what it boils down to, that many men seem to think that women's bodies are their perks when they get powerful positions, and how incredibly destructive that is. And we see this even with men. I mean, sexual assault is one of those things, whether it's men or women, and you see these men who were victims of Catholic priests, how for the rest of their lives. They deal with shame. It's the sense of powerlessness, I think, when you feel that somebody is taking liberties with your body. So I think these scandals and issues raise the profile and perhaps motivate people to push for better recognition of it, change in social mores, maybe change in policy.
Good to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
Thank you. As we continue tonight, Western allies pointing the finger at Russia, accusing the country of worldwide state-sponsored espionage, and the chief executive of Salesforce is calling Facebook the new cigarette. And we'll ask you, so please get your mobile device ready. CNN.com/join. What would cause you to get rid of Facebook? In a moment.